All right. Talking about chapter 11 of book 2 of The House of Mirth, which I've read out all in one Sunday morning rush because I am going to try and get all the chapters done before I go away on vacation, which probably means reading two chapters a day versus uh, half a chapter or just one chapter a day. Um, God, this is such a beautiful chapter. Uh, the plot, as it is, Lily has been dismissed from the milliner because she sucks as a milliner. As she says, she's been basically raised to be an ornament and can't compete with women who've basically been raised to be professionals all their life, have it genetically programmed into their fingers basically at this point. Also, probably just a certain amount of her will to do it. Like this just isn't what she wants to do. So there's that as well. I don't think she's genetically incapable, but she's mentally it's not going to happen. Um, she's been showing up less and later, which makes me think there's probably been more and more drops of that little helpful little file. Um, and she goes out and there's a scene in a restaurant where she's just alone in the sea of women, all kind of going through their magazines and chatting with each other. Even the ones who are alone are kind of going through their stuff, and she's just alone in the sea of it, which is quite the scene of it. At the very beginning, she sees familiar faces. She sees This is really a retrospective chat. This is a chapter that does a lot of its work with um, showing kind of um, showing her past life, but from this new angle, which is on the streets, out of work, penniless. She sees among them was Miss Van Osburgh swaying majestically in her sea spring barouche, with Mrs. Percy Gryce at her sides. It's interesting that yeah, we have her and we have Judy Trenner accompanied by Lady Skadaw uh, thing, but we also have Mrs. Hatch who is alone. They were succeeded by Mrs. Hatch's Electric Victoria, which I should look up. What an Electric Victoria is. I wonder if it's a electrically powered vehicle, in which the lady reclined in the lonely splendor of the spring toilet, obviously designed for company. So even though she is rich at a certain level, still doesn't have company. She hasn't succeeded in making it in with the Van Osburgs or the Trenners or something like that. Um, but yeah, she's gotten turfed, and she ends up going out. She does have a meeting with Rosedale again. Rosedale yet again offers to help her, but it's like he's offering her money. He's always saying like, "I'll lend you the money that Gus Trenner basically," and she says like, "Look, it's the same. It's not a business deal. You'd just be buying me." And she's got that. Doesn't have. She doesn't have that, and he does actually they um he becomes Rosedale becomes more and more less of a looked upon, despised and looked upon, but he's still gross. Gross kindness, I think, is what we get there. Um but he's also still kind of a collector. Like, she is beautiful and gorgeous. And there's something that um but he seems to kind of have developed finer tastes as he's worked his way up the social ladder. And what does it? There's a thing. Um, there's this thing here of um, whatever perplexity he felt as to the inexorableness of her course, However little he penetrated its motives, she saw that it unmistakably tended to strengthen her hold over him. So her being kind of having these scruples, it was though her sense of her unexplained scruples and resistance had the same attraction as the delicacy of feature, the fastidious of manner, which gave her an external rarity, of being impossible to match. As he advanced in social experience, this uniqueness had acquired a greater value for him, as though he were a collector who had learned to distinguish minor differences of design and quality in some long coveted object. He does remain material in his desires, but he's becoming even finer, which is probably why he's still pursuing such a fallen creature like Lily Bart. Um, but yes, but she says, like, how much she's actually kind of is that little by little circumstances were breaking down her dislike for Rosedale. The dislike indeed still subsisted, so it's still there, but it was penetrated here and there by the perception of mitigating qualities in him, of a certain gross kindness, a rather helpless fidelity of sentiment, which seemed to be struggling through the hard surface of his material ambitions. So still see him as a kind of the it's the anti-Semitic materialistic Jewish man, but that it's breaking through. Um, she didn't take any drops that night, and this day for this the day coming up, and she reviewed her situation. Um, in fending off the offer, his Rosedale's offer, she was that he was so plainly ready to renew, had she not sacrificed to one of those abstract notions of honor that might be called the conventionalities of the moral life? So, yeah, what and it's like she's holding on to her morals, and it's like what did she owe to the social order which she condemned and banished her without trial? Like, she's been ill treated. She's Bertha Bertha Dorset, to save herself, had not scrupled to ruin her by an open falsehood. Why should she hesitate to make private use of the facts that chance had put in her way? So again, we're going to those letters. Those letters are still there. Call it blackmail, and it becomes unthinkable. But explain that it injures no one, that the rights regained by it were unjustly forfeited, and he must be a formalist indeed who can find no plea in its defense, because we're going to leading up to her going to Bertha Dorset with these letters, and it's like, what is she going to do? And I do think, you know, the smart thing, the thing that would get her ahead, I doubt if she's going to do that. I doubt. Though there is such this chapter is so diffused with sadness, with a resignation, that I almost think of like kind of like Anna Karenina. This is going to be, it's the great tragedy, and she is going to die. She is going to die in it. She is she is a beautiful bird that no longer can be in the an ornament in the great garden, and she's left out in the cold. And what happens to birds left out? Birds of a rare breed, tropical birds that are cast out into the cold, um, which is a very romantic notion on that. I mean, there's also, Gertie Farish trucking along, and doing it with her own definite moral thing. It's like Gertie and Lily are a good kind of like, Gertie lives in this world and is able to kind of to live here. Um, yeah, yeah. But yes, she goes to this. She took refuge in a little restaurant in 59th Street, and it was full of women and girls, all too much engaged in rapid absorption of tea and pie to remark her entrance. She felt a sudden pang of profound loneliness. She had lost the sense of time. Yeah, that's the other thing. And it seemed to her as though she had not spoken to anyone for days. Her eyes sought the faces about her, craving a responsive glance, some sign of intuition of her trouble, but the sallow, preoccupied women with their bags and notebooks and rolls of music were all engrossed in their own affairs. Even those who sat by themselves were busy running over proof sheets or devouring magazines between their hurried gulps of tea. Lily alone was stranded in a great waste of disoccupation. So that scene there, and it's like it's significant that it's a scene of working women, you know, who are hurriedly having their gulps of tea and pie, looking at magazines, and yeah, that I totally, yeah, been like there's times of your life that I've had like that where you've just been adrift, unmoored, no job, and you feel that profound sense of loneliness, uh, which, yeah, is kind of really gorgeously caught and really kind of pulls Lily to my heart. Gonna pull me to my heart. Uh, it's gonna be that. That's what's going to do it. That kind of loneliness. Uh, which I'm just gonna put loneliness there because that's something I might highlight if I ever if I talk about this book. God damn it. So yeah, at first I really did think she maybe was going to commit suicide. Like the packet, maybe that was going to be the packet of powders or drops or stuff like that, but it's like no. It's the sealed packet, uh, and slipped it into the bosom of her dress. Uh, Even the contact with the packet did not shake her nerves as she had half expected it would. She seemed encased in a strong armor of indifference, as though the vigorous exertion of her will had finally benumbed her finer sensibilities. So that's the so that getting that packet. Um, oh, I love pausing and just kind of savoring that. It's like her finer sensibilities benumbed enough that she's going to use this against Bertha Dorset, use it to get what she needs in a material sense. Um, and you know, she's walking there and she gets drenched, and it's like she had no umbrella, and the moisture quickly penetrated her thin spring dress. So she is lonely, she is penniless, she is wet and cold. It's just like she is, you know, and she took the electric car, which is just like it's that era. Um, the thing I'm enjoying about my 1901 project is that thing of an electric car, which nowadays it means something entirely different because I highlighted that with the Kindle and it comes up with the EV, which I don't think this is. Um, and the thing, and yeah, and as she goes to Bertha Dorset's, she goes by uh, George Selden's room, and she thinks about basically the very opening of this novel of walking with Selden that September day 2 years ago. That's how long this novel has been. The, it was down this street that she walked with Selden that September day 2 years ago, and the recollection bethronged a benumbed sensation of longings, regrets, imagining throbbing broodings of the only spring her heart had ever known, which ah, that gets into, yeah, I think that time with Selden and kind of like that was the only spring her heart had ever known. and it was strange to find herself passing his house on such an errand. She seemed suddenly to see her action as he would see it, and the fact of his own connection with it, the fact that to attain her end she must trade on his name and profit by a secret of his past, chilled her blood with shame. Yeah, this is the I can't remember though I couldn't remember if those letters of Bertha Dorset who they were to, and it's like I think they were to George Selden. That's probably the other thing that I should think of. It's like, yeah, exposing those letters would have meant destroying George Dorset would not George Dorset with with Selden would have is it yeah would have she must trade on his name and profit by a secret of his past. um Chilled her blood with shame. She loves him so much, she loves Selden so much, but those letters are, you know they contain his name. That's uh God damn it. um yeah, yeah. And then at the end, all her resentment of his fancy coldness was swept away in this overwhelming rush of recollection. Twice he'd been ready to help her by loving her, as he had said, and if, the third time, he had seemed to fail her, whom but herself could she accuse? Well, that part of her life was over. She did not know why her thoughts still clung to it, but the sudden longing to see him remained. It grew to a hunger as she paused on the pavement opposite his door. The street was dark and empty, swept by the rain, which is, I think this is the way again. And it was dark and empty and swept by the rain. She had a vision of his quiet room, of the bookshelves, and the fire on the hearth. She looked up and saw a light in his window, and then she crossed the street and entered the house. And at this point, it's ambiguous which house she's going into, but I guess we'll find out um, as we go down. I think it's into Selden's. I think it's Selden's room. Wow. Okay. Maybe she's going to give the letters to Selden. God damn it. Beautiful.